Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me here at Weathervane Theatre today. My name is Carrie, I'm Weathervane's marketing associate, and here at Weathervane we are very fortunate because we have the distinct privilege of getting to perform theater for multiple people inside this fall during the pandemic. And we have the honor of having three very talented directors here with me today, and each of them are directing a different production, and I will let them introduce themselves and tell you which project they're working on.
I'm Paulini, I'm directing Miracle on South Division Street.
I'm Amiee Turner, I'm directing And the World Goes Round.
And I'm Kevin Smith Kirkwood, and I'm directing The Little Shop of Horrors.
And thank you all so much for joining me here today. So, March came, the pandemic came, and everyone's worlds were turned maybe a little bit upside down. So, Amiee, why don't you tell us about what your life looked like pre-COVID and what it kind of looks like now?
Well, I think like a lot of people, that's a challenging question because
Sure.
There's the professional aspect, there's the personal aspect. I think for me, I was fortunate enough to have several projects sort of lined up. One was this that still ended up happening, others that didn't, but I think just on a more personal level, as a Broadway alumni and as a theater professional for many decades, it was really devastating to just watch your industry get shut down, to go from 100% to zero. So that, it's hard for me to sort of compartmentalize my experience
Sure.
within that. Everything has sort of two sides to it. My son had just started working in the Broadway community, and so now he's back home with me, which is great, but sad because he should be, starting his life. There were other opportunities that came about, totally unexpected, and others that disappeared. So, it's still challenging, quite frankly, to kind of navigate through it all.
Thank you so much. Ethan, as a producing artistic director, when the pandemic hit, what went through your mind? Because I know you were very much like, we must persevere, and it worked out.
Yeah. I'm good so far. I think that like Amiee, I also had a lot of other freelance projects that I was looking forward to doing, but realized that this had to be sort of the priority because of the moving parts. And for me, it was about all of the different people that it affected, right? That it wasn't just about I can't do the work or the theater can't do the work. It was about what this place means to the livelihood of so many artists, and even more importantly, to some degree, the livelihood of this community, and ultimately the sustainability of this organization. We, until this year, until this inaugural fall season, we only did July and August, and so that would have meant that if this season didn't happen at all, we would have closed at the end of August in 2019 and not come back until the 4th of July in 2021. And it's hard enough to regain that traction and regain that visibility when we leave for 10 months. I couldn't imagine what that would be if we had left for 23 months. So it really was about, so no matter what it took, no matter what kind of losses we face, which we will, it was about building the bridge to keep the visibility of the organization and the visibility and the retention of the artists that I care about bringing back year after year. That was sort of the goal of continuing to move forward despite whatever circumstances might present themselves.
And it was beautiful to see you be that diligent and to be on the forefront and jumping on and trying to innovate. I mean, other theaters were canceling seasons, and Ethan was like, we're gonna hold on, we still have time on our side, we're gonna do everything that we possibly can to try to make this happen, and I was so inspired by that. I thought that was amazing. So it doesn't surprise me that we would then be here, because of that work. Yeah.
And it's weird how things do happen because, as you just said, this was going to be the first fall season. And I think that you were able to make a decision about the summer season when it was necessary and hold off on making the fall season. And, to your point about the 23 months, to me, it's a miracle that this was already being planned.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if it would have happened if it hadn't already been.
Mhm.
You know, we were already planning to be up here so yeah, that was kind of a little theatrical miracle.
And I wasn't planning to be up here for the fall season, so this is a special treat for me. You know, I was supposed to come up to direct and choreograph Kinky Boots, and also do a special performance of my solo show, Classic Whitney Alive, it's called. And luckily we get to postpone that till next summer, because I'm really excited about bringing that one up to the North Country. But so for me, I feel like there are no mistakes in the universe that I would then end up here anyway, you know, because of the turn of events. So everything's an opportunity or a lesson.
So you just mentioned that you weren't supposed to be up here originally to direct Little Shop.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got this project, you knew COVID, you knew that there was going to be certain creative obstacles that were in your way. Can you talk a little bit about how that went into your process of staging this production?
Sure. Well, there were certain moments that we knew we had to get a little bit creative about, which, you know, of course, the kiss and the little things in the dentist scene and that sort of thing. And then it was just about sort of making sure that the staging was as open as it possibly could. And because of the way the set is designed, it actually, you know, was not as much of a hindrance as far as blocking and such is concerned. The other thing, though, that was a consideration is the plan, because usually there's a big puppet, and it takes usually an actor or two inside there, you know, working things out and cramped in and, you know, that sort of thing. And I think that we were able to come up with a clever bit of casting. I think we were and amazing efforts from our design team. I think we've been able to come up with a really special Weathervane interpretation of the plan that I think may not have happened if we weren't in COVID times.
And if you want to see that interpretation, you can go to weathervanenh.org and buy tickets.
Yes.
I want to open that question up to both of you. Were there any, with the limitations that COVID presents, were there any creative epiphanies or any obstacles that you encountered that you would like to elaborate on?
I think for me, what comes to mind is when I had originally envisioned this, it was taking place within all of these intimate settings. You know, like I imagined part of it taking place at a bar, in a banquet, on a small, you know, stage, sitting around a table. You know, those kinds of like intimate spaces for the storytelling of it, and then realizing that not only was that we couldn't do that or shouldn't do that or both, but that I didn't want the audience to be worried about people being in that space, and so then it kind of became about how do we create an open space where we have lots of air literally around us and around each performer, and just finding the moments that the cast comes together as being those special times, those quick times, those little like drop-in times rather than the entire show being that. So kind of for me, it flipped the whole concept almost completely upside down, from being very intimate to being as wide and tall as it could be.
The world goes round. And
Yes, that is accurate.
how about with the Miracle on South Division Street?
I think that really the trickiest thing just lies in the reality that this is a story about a family, and families are comfortable. And, you know, in writing all the proposals to equity, you know, you had to talk about certain moments, and some moments that I wasn't even directing, that I just had to sort of hypothesize and then share that information with the directors. But specifically for Miracle, it was things like it's a very naturalistic play. It lives in these people's kitchen. It happens in real time. They are eating food and drinking together, and that was stuff that we can't do anymore. There's no eating. There's no sharing of that experience, which also to me is very representative of family anyway. I think that's why it's in the play in the first place. Like, there are definitely moments where they come together as a family, but it was about remembering that as comfortable as we are in the bubble that we create, that we like take the safety precautions and we make everyone quarantine and wear masks during the time where, you know, the uncertain amount of time that they've been here. It's important to remember that too much togetherness will only take the audience out of it, right? That like, even though those actors are like, we're fine, we live together, we cohabitate, we know where we stand with this, the audience isn't sure of that. We've tried, and you've done a great job of putting that into the messaging, in all the press releases, in all the ads, you know, what we've done to make sure everyone's safe, but it's a knee-jerk reaction when you see it, with all the messaging that is out there about distancing and about, you know, not being in groups of people. It's still, when you see it in front of you, you can't help but take note of it. So we're sunk if in a 90-minute play, people sit there on the edge of their seat anxious about all of these people interacting too much. I mean, we were running it the other day, and it's also very prop heavy, so there's stuff that gets touched. And I was sitting there 15 minutes into it and walked over and grabbed a bottle of hand sanitizer and put it on the table and was like, just use that from time to time. I know you have to touch things, but just keep pumping. So every 5 minutes, these actors were like, and moving on with the show. So that you know, that's just such a new reality.
And it's still on the prop table
It
right
is,
now.
yeah.
Can you talked about the audience and them feeling comfortable. Can you talk a little bit about some of the measures that we have instilled here at Weathervane for an audience member when they come and see a show in person?
Yes, so masks required on premises. All seating is at least 6 feet apart. Most are much more. The theater is capped at 25% capacity. The biggest thing is our new HVAC air purification system, which, no accidents in the universe, was something that was approved last fall, long before COVID happened, and we would not be where we are if that was not part of the equation. They would have just said no, dead in the water with my proposal if we didn't have that. So that was lucky.
Isn't there more space between the audience and the cast?
We're not seating until row B, which we have row row C. Row AA, row A, and row B. So there's our wide front aisle that we always had anyway for accessibility, and then we have the first 3 rows roped off, and every other row, so there's no patron sitting in rows directly behind each other, with either the ends or the center of the rows. So we've limited capacity in the lobby. There's only 12 people at a time. We're opening the house 40 minutes prior to curtain so that people have plenty of time to get to their seats. Contactless ticketing and playbills. There's a digital playbill that's so beautiful that you did, and ticketing is all done just by, you get an email and then you check in with your last name when you arrive. We're doing temperature checks. We have 5 screening questions, so we're doing everything possible to make sure everyone feels really comfortable and safe.
And just like for the actors, we have hand sanitation stations at every entrance.
Yeah.
So right now, people are alone, they're quarantined consistently, they're feeling kind of down. So why is theater so important right now, and these shows in particular?
I think theater's been around since humanity has cohabitated and organized themselves in groups. And for me, there's 2 elements to that. There's the storytelling, which is how we communicate and how we learn from each other and how we progress through life, is by listening to stories. You know, that's, you know, at church, that's what happens. Like, it's all the way that we progress, I think, is through storytelling. So I think it's innate that we come together as a group and listen to a story. And I think that I haven't ever, public performances, whether it's a rock concert or a theatrical event, you know, what is that? It's in the search for signs of intelligent life in the universe, that, you know, we breathe collectively together in that space. And if you listen to a piece of music, your hearts not only start beating at the same tempo as everyone else in the room, but as the tempo of the composer that wrote it. Like, there's just something innate about that collective experience, and I think I'll speak for myself, and it actually makes me really emotional, that this distancing, this insistence and necessity that we isolate ourselves is so contradictory to, I think, what brings humanity to our lives. And so I think live performance in general is specific, but I think when you add that storytelling experience, the thoughtfulness of going through, the letting go of what's happening, and being more than entertained by the characters on the stage and the energy that the actors bring, it's really vital. I don't think theater will ever go away, and to be a part of, literally, I'm pretty sure, literally the first experience where actors are in the same space with the audience it gives me hope. It gives me hope that, we don't have to go back to normal. We could go to a new normal, but if it doesn't include experiences like this, I would find that to be overwhelmingly sad, and I find this to be overwhelmingly hopeful. And we don't really have an end in sight, but at least if we can start living and living, not just like staying alive, God forbid, all these incredible lives lost, but living, this is an important step for me, and I think for a lot of people. And that's kind of deep, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's so deep. It's so deep. But I'm with you. And there won't be a world without art. I'm confident. I say this.
There wasn't quarantine without art, right? How
That's
many people binge Netflix?
Listen, that's right.
I think
That's
that
right.
was.
I did a few digital concerts during it. I had to learn a new technology and buy a microphone. And it was so weird to do a concert in my living room. But what was amazing is to see, it was different from having a live audience, but you could see the live chat and you could see how hungry people were for art, music, entertainment. I say this phrase a lot, art is power. And I think socially, politically, emotionally, as far as community building, it's on all levels, art is power, and right, humanity needs those forms of expression, you know what I mean? To bring us together, to lift us up, to make us think, change our minds, make us hopeful, and that's why, pandemic or not, humans are gonna create art. I believe that, and we've shown it, and we're showing it now, and that makes me hopeful, like you. It's a beautiful thing.
It's interesting that, we have Little Shop, which is, I've heard you say this, I'm going to take a little bit of your words, that it really is. It's about how darkness can take over a life, and the only thing that can save that is love, right? And then you have World Goes Round, which is, two of the most brilliant lyricists and composers in the history of theater, and it's really just about, like, getting together and being entertained, right? Like, just the joy of hearing talented people sing amazing music. And then you have A Miracle on South Division Street, and it's like all about family and how you can get through anything with family, dysfunctional, So it's kind of like an intriguing combo platter for how to, get through the pandemic. Hopefully, either, by birth or by choice, you have a strong family, a little bit of entertainment, and some thoughtful consideration about darkness and love, right?
I love it. Tie it all
Get a
together.
subscription.
Yes. And with that, I thank you all so very much for joining me here today. Weathervane's inaugural fall season opens Wednesday, September 9th, and runs in alternating repertories all the way through Sunday, that's right, Sunday, October 11th. You can get tickets at weathervanenh.org. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie.
My pleasure.